Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast Why You Do What You Do. Podcast that talks about human development and psychology and helps you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. And last time we were talking about premenstrual syndrome, bleh, and I was saying, it's a real thing, guys. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. How to treat PMS is controversial. Because, like I said, we still have male doctors who not quite believing, even though they, in theory, should know. One widely used treatment, administration of progesterone in the form of a pill or suppository, proved in a large, randomized, controlled study to be no more beneficial than a placebo. Progesterone, we both sexes have that. So, that was kind of a hit or miss thing. I think they probably should have done maybe a little more study into that. Because I know I used to keep Midol and things, Tylenol, PMS, on hand. So, in a follow-up study, anti-anxiety pills proved more effective. And that could be because of the irritability factor. Because when you're bloated and crampy and, feeling like crap, you're anxious also. Now, that's not saying that PMS is anxiety, because it's not. But the pills can help with those effects, just like they can with anxiety, because anxiety is also a product of an overactive mind and body. For milder symptoms, some doctors recommend exercise and dietary changes, such as avoiding fat, sodium, caffeine, and alcohol. And that's because, fat, of course, can make you bloat and swell. Sodium, again, can also make you swell, and also narrows your capillaries and veins and things, which causes you more stress and causes your blood pressure to go up. Caffeine also, will make you jittery and things. So if you're already on edge, you don't need that. And of course, alcohol, if you're already feeling down, then that's going to contribute to that as more. So you probably can cut that out too. Sexually transmitted diseases. An estimated 15 million people in the United States became infected with one or more STDs each year, and about half contract lifelong infections. So, again, if you got those young people, talk to them about this. So, they'll be protected against such things. Not surprisingly, the highest rates for most STDs are among adolescents and young adults, the age groups most likely to engage in risky sexual activities. Like I said, you talk to your kids about this. Better safe than sorry. While some STDs, notably syphilis, have become less prevalent, others, such as gonorrhea and genital herpes, are on the rise. And it used to be syphilis was the number one, and that would kill you. I forget which gangster it was, one of the famous gangsters. Had syphilis, little spirochetes that eat your brain, and died from it. But most people, that's, on the low, because there are some treatments that, are arguably good for it. No cure, certainly. But, with the other diseases, there are things that they can do for gonorrhea, and genital herpes is unfortunately something, once you have herpes, you always have herpes. It goes away, it comes back. I've heard about people who have it, and it's an ugly thing. So tell your kids, kind of wrap that rascal. Although STDs are found in all racial and ethnic groups, they tend to be higher among African Americans than among white Americans, in part due to such factors as poverty, drug use, and sexual networks in which STDs are widespread. Because, like we talked about, the economic, socioeconomic status, poorer people are more depressed. And young people who are depressed might turn to sex thinking that's going to help them feel better. It doesn't most of the time, but they're more likely to engage in such risky behaviors. And of course, drug use, if you're using drugs, you're more likely to give in to, what people are asking of you. And, sexual networks, there is, unfortunately, human trafficking still going on, where there are young people who, in a poverty situation, like say, I know a woman who was supposedly sold to a man for $20,000 on her 17th birthday. So this unfortunately happens. At the end of 2001, 40 million people worldwide were estimated to have HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. So, that's a lot of people. Now, if they just have HIV, that's not full-blown AIDS. If you want more information, I'm sure, they'll probably put a little tag on this if I tag that. Do your homework. About 95% were in the developing world. So most of them are still in third world countries. But in the 80s especially, it became a big deal here in the USA. The majority of new infections occur in young adults, especially young women. So, you moms of girls, you might want to make sure they know that the ones getting most infected are young women, and that's because of multiple sex partners, and you don't know who this person's been with before you. So, talk to your girls about safe sex, because, there are ways, to have safe sex, Worldwide, AIDS is the fourth leading cause of death. In sub-Saharan Africa, it is the first. So, that's kind of, a big deal that it's the fourth leading cause of death in the world. And, in sub-Saharan Africa, it's the number one cause of death. So, that's still a big problem over there. Globally, most HIV-infected adults are heterosexual. So, the old adage that HIV is a gay disease is not true. It is spread that way also. And in the 80s, when there was, a lot less monogamous relationships in the gay community, when, there was a lot of freedom of sexuality happening, they were coming out and we're queer, we're here. I forget what the saying was. Deal with it, something like that. But it was more prevalent in that community. But now that's not necessarily the case. In the United States, HIV has been most prevalent among homosexual and bisexual men, drug abusers who share contaminated hypodermic needles, and people who have heterosexual contact with infected partners. Like I just was talking about, the gay movement in the 80s, where a lot of that bed hopping was going on, and then needles being shared. Of course, that's never a good thing, but of course, if you're that bad of a drug addict, you're probably not thinking about that. And again, like I said, you don't know who the other person's been with that you're being with. So, safe sex is the best answer to that situation. Only about 1% of cases are in people who have received transfusions of infected blood or blood products. So, Arthur Ashe's case was rare, but it still happened. Especially, like say, back in the 80s when this was just starting, and nobody really was informed or knew about these things. There were people who got a HIV-infected blood and ended up with AIDS. So, it was a sad thing, and that's why they now have these tests to make sure that the blood is safe because of stuff like that happened. In the United States, the AIDS epidemic has begun to come under control. Like I said, it was full blown, in the 80s, and so that's kind of gone down as we become more aware of that. In 1995, AIDS became the leading cause of death for 25 to 44-year-olds. And that's because our young people are not as careful as they should be, and that's why I say talk to your young people. You should be having safe sex until you are in a committed relationship. And then it's probably a good idea for both of you to get tested, for STDs, and see what is exactly good or not so good in your relationship. Because there are people who are in committed relationships with people who have, STDs, and some of them incurable even. Excuse me here, little gnats flying around making my ear itch here. But, it's important to talk to the young people and tell them that if you're going to have sex, have safe sex. Don't risk your life. Just doing it. In 2000, it was, excuse me, it was the 5th leading cause of death. So it's gotten lower on the, scale here. Of the total 793,026 AIDS cases reported since 1981, 484,067 have been in young adults. So that's, over half. So, like I say, tell your young people safe sex is the way to go. Because they're going to have sex, let's face it. They're just going to. As many as 300,000 persons may be unaware that they are infected with HIV. So that's a lot of people here in the U.S. And they're not symptomatic, so they don't even know they have it. Nearly half of 25 to 34-year-olds and 2/3 of 18 to 24-year-olds never have been tested. So there's young people going around out there with HIV, and they don't even know it because they've never been tested and they're not symptomatic. Getting men to use condoms, the most effective means of preventing STDs, is often not easy. That's because guys, don't like the feel, or they want to ride bareback, or, whatever they come up with. And it's all, selfishness. It doesn't feel as good to wear the condom, so, dang little gnats flying around. My husband was out watering the plants last night and left the door cracked, so, this heat, the bugs just decide they're coming on in. In a study of 822 young inner-city women, only 7% reported that their main partners consistently used condoms. So that's only 7%, that's a pretty small amount. So, tell your youngsters, if they're gonna have sex, to wrap that rascal, it could save your life. Percentages were higher among women with a strong sense of self-efficacy, perhaps because they were more assertive with their partners. In other words, have a little self-esteem. It's like, if you don't put that on, you ain't getting it. It's that simple. Because why, like I say, why risk your life for a fling? Sometimes we just do these things, and we know when youngsters are young, they're going to do these things. So, it's better to be safe than sorry. A 3-session intervention among U.S. Marine security guards resulted in an increased perception of social support for condom use and stronger intentions to practice safe sex. So there was a program that they went into the, Marines and talked to them about this, because it might have been a problem. The military is kind of notorious for, going out and having fun on leave and weekends and things. You know, sorry. I hear these things, but you know, the program and the intervention that they did with them did some good. It worked, so you know that's a good thing. And that's where I'm gonna leave you today. I hope this helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Please like and share this educational program so we can spread it around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. That's all for now. Until next time.